We are back, everyone. I couldn't get the last video uploaded in time, but I had a very bad outage. But basically, there was a tornado, and it knocked out our power, and the rest is history. But that video is uploaded, and I'm back. So, anyways, welcome back to the Terraria melee weapon tier list. And in this video, we're going over all the post-boss weapons, or pre-Skeletron weapons, however you want to look at it. But I promise you, unlike part 1, we do have less melee weapons to cover, and maybe I could cover some of the hard mode weapons. But anyways, here we go. Now this weapon, I've been waiting to talk about for a long time. I give to you the Phase Blade. Now despite being a reference to one of the most iconic and recognizable weapons in fiction, they're based off of the lightsabers in Star Wars, by the way. These were not very appealing, and they are just regular true melee weapons. But then come 1.4.5, and these all 9 variants got the buff that they deserved, because they can now be thrown like that, and they can embed into the ground and you can recall it back. It might not seem like a big change, but it actually makes a tremendous difference. And oh wait, there, as it's embedded into the ground, enemy touching it will take damage upon contact. So basically, it's kind of like a broadsword and a boomerang, because you can fall back. Oh yeah, that same update, there have been 2 new variants of the Phase Blade and Phase Saber. The pink and rainbow Phase Blade. The difference with these 2 Phase Blades is that the pink Phase Blade is made with a pink pearl instead of gems. I forgot to mention to you that the red, yellow, blue, green, purple, and orange Phase Blades are made with gems of their respective colors. And I forgot the white Phase Blade, but yeah, that's made with diamonds. And the rainbow Phase Blade is made with 3 of every gem, and all of them are made with 15 meteorite bars, so basically post-Brain of Cthulhu and post-Eater of Worlds, because that's the change they made. Now, despite all these variants, they are basically the same, so I'm just going to rank the rainbow Phase Blade. So basically, that settles it. We've discussed its buff, and it should go in one of these high tiers, right? Well, we still have to see its potential. Alright, we are here. Phase Blade is reforged to legendary. We have these buffs, and we're about to fight the Queen Bee with the Phase Blade. And it looks like that did pretty well against Queen Bee. Now, how about Deerclops? Then again, yeah, this is just... that's just too easy. Skeletron, once again, is a complete and utter joke. There we go. He's still a joke. Tried it against the wall of flesh, but I don't really think it did it. Probably because I made my bridge too short. Now, even though it did not help me defeat the wall of flesh, it's still quite a great weapon. Yeah, 8 tier. And next is the third material for the Night's Edge, the volcano. Now this is the weapon that I typically use against Skeletron, but I think if we were talking about before 1.4.4, I probably would not have, assuming. But in that update, it did get, well, and maybe some previous updates, it did receive some buffs. But most notably in 1.4.4, they used, well, maybe they also had to nerf it. The use time was increased from 30 to 40, so now it's like pretty slow. But in that same update, they made it so that it could cause an explosion. Okay, well maybe not like that, but like that. Now a little fun fact about this weapon is that before 1.4.4, it was called the Fiery Greatsword. I kid you not. I probably would not have called it that name for the time being, but it was changed to Volcano in the update. Now I could go over how damage got buffed a few times, but I'm not very sure. Anyways, this is yet another post-Burn Cthulhu and Eater of Worlds weapon, because it's made with 20 Hellstone bars from the underworld. Still can't rank it without trying it on bosses. I think this is probably one of the best weapons I could have used on Queen Bee. Deerclops again just disintegrates within minutes. As I mentioned before, this is my weapon of choice for Skeletron, all because that the damage speaks for itself. I think its real challenge is against the Wall of Flesh, because since this is a true melee weapon, it doesn't have the range for this fight. It does knock back the Hungry very well, but you're probably not going to get to the main body. Regardless, it is still an amazing choice for getting through everything up until the Wall of Flesh. But yeah, against the Wall of Flesh, you're definitely going to need Night's Edge. A tier. Before we get to the fourth and final material for the Night's Edge, we have to talk about the Beekeeper. It's another melee weapon that received both a buff and a nerf. In 1.4, the damage was decreased from 26 to 24, use time was increased from 20 to 22, knockback was decreased from 5.3 to 5, and it couldn't be auto swung. But then 1.4.1, the damage was increased back to 26, use time was decreased back to 20, and the knockback was increased from 5 to 5.3 again, and it can auto swing once more. But that's not the biggest buff, because it received 2 more, or 3. The damage is increased from 26 to 30 in 1.4.4. In 1.4.4.8, it now spawns a beast that can crit based on melee critical strike chance. And in 1.4.5, each beat, or just the blade itself, inflicts the confused debuff 100% of the time as opposed to 90%. Yep, it inflicts the confused debuff like that. And it summons bees. Now as for this confused debuff, it still suffers the exact same problem as the purple clubberfish. And it's that a lot of bosses are immune to this debuff, or probably just all of them. That includes the post-sprint of Cthulhu and your world's bosses. Actually, this includes all the pre-hard mode bosses like Deerclops and Skeletron and Wall of Flesh. They all can't be inflicted by this debuff, so it's genuinely wasted. But unlike the purple cloverfish, the bees make this weapon better. That being said, we gotta try it on bosses. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention to you that this has a 1 in 3 drop rate from Queen Bee, and is the 4th material for the Zenith. Anyways, now we try it on bosses. The Bees the Beekeeper summon certainly made this one of the better broadswords against Deerclops. And against Skeletron, this thing almost doesn't disappoint. The Beekeeper did struggle against the Wall of Flesh a little bit, but it certainly held up until halfway through when it didn't have a big enough bridge. So basically, it has quite the same pros and cons as the Volcano, except it's dropped by the Queen Bee. So for that reason, B tier. Get it? Because it's about bees. And whatever. And now we get to the 4th and final weapon for the Knight's Edge, the Muramasa. It's existed as long as the Star Fury has. So that being said, it's another old weapon, but that means that it was never good. Still have to go over its buffs and nerfs though. Let's see, in 1.4.1, the damage was increased from 21 to 26, and the knockback was increased from 2.5 to 3. Then in 1.4.4, the damage was reduced to 24, but they added a projectile to it that would emerge whenever you hit an enemy. Yep, it creates a projectile. Exactly like this. Oh wait. It's summoning too many. Alright, so anyways, as I was saying, it summons this projectile when it hits enemies. However, despite its feature, despite the projectile it creates, it still has a few problems. The first is how you obtain it, because you have to get it from locked gold chests in the dungeon after Skeletron has been defeated, which is pretty late in progression. Usually players would go right to the Wall of Flesh after Skeletron, but the Muramasa is definitely not the weapon. That also brings me to the other issue, and it's that it is not... Yeah, again, it's not useful against the Wall of Flesh. As you can see, it could not defeat the Wall of Flesh. And as I mentioned to you earlier, this crafts the Knight's Edge, the single most best pre-hard mode broadsword, mind you, and that essentially makes the Muramasa useless. Now in its defense, it is good against single enemies, like the halfway, because of that. It was also the best. Actually, no. Let me see. This was the most powerful weapon when Terraria first released. But I guess now that the Knight's Edge is here, this has fallen from grace. So in conclusion, this would definitely be useless if it wasn't for the fact that it could craft the Knight's Edge. And it was a good melee weapon at one point, but still not as great. C tier. And lastly, the moment you've all been waiting for. The one, the only, Knight's Edge. You can't really go wrong with the Knight's Edge. It is simply the best. Even though it was not really like this. But let's talk about its ups and downs. In 1.4.1, the use time was decreased from 27 to 21 and could be auto-swung. In 1.4.4, it now emits auras around the blade when swinging, increasing the range and damage. And the melee speed now only, and the melee swing, sorry I said melee speed, I meant melee swing. It now hits up to 3 targets. But then in 1.4.4.8, the damage was reduced to 40, use time was increased to 25, and the projectile now hits 2 enemies. Still, even though it was nerfed, it still holds up very well. And it technically creates 2 projectiles. One where it swings with the blade, and another that goes further on its way out, like this. As you can see, even though the blade did not hit that target dummy, I still do damage thanks to the second aura it emitted. It also has a direct upgrade in hard mode with the True Knight's Edge. But we're not going to talk about it right now or in this video. But anyways, to prove to you how effective this is, we're going to take it and go try it on the wall of flesh. As you can see, it keeps all of the hungry at bay and ensures that you can get to the main wall with ease. Because of this, you can easily defeat the wall of flesh with no struggle. Now, if we're talking about hard mode in this case, then I really have to try something. We're going to fight a mechanical boss. Now, this might surprise you, but this actually did very well against the Destroyer. Definitely not the best. There are definitely better alternatives against the Destroyer and the Knight's Edge, like the Shadow Flame Knife. I forgot what I was gonna say. And it took a long time, longer than I'd like. But I'm still shocked at how great that did. I think something that doesn't make sense is that, actually I'll just show you. See, the Knight's Edge can only hit 4 enemies. You can see that when I swing the blade, I'm clearly hitting the 5th target dummy, but it only hits these 4. And that might just be a me thing, but it still doesn't make much sense. But anyways, the Destroyer is not the only mechanical boss. Gonna try on the twins. It came pretty close, but I was still able to fight the twins long enough until Red Ninja was at its breaking point. Now, even with his weaknesses, still does good enough to the point where it just has to be S tier. Now, I know that I turned down on the code 1 in the last video, but that was because that I didn't realize that it was a yo-yo obtained after the Eye of Cthulhu. But as I was about to say, we could rule out that it was basically the Malaysian artery, but with higher stats. Now, even though it does more damage The thing about it is that you have to buy it from the traveling merchant, and it's not very likely he'll sell the yo-yo, because it's... Wait. So each item sold by the traveling merchant has different rarities. I should have covered that while I was talking about the katana, but that and the code one are in the rare rarity. Oh, actually the katana is an uncommon. And it's the same thing with its counterpart in hard mode, the code 2. It's in rare. So given that, it requires so much RNG that you might just not have it by now, and when you get something like the Hive 5 or Valor or something like that, you might not have this. Still, it's good against the Brain and Skeletron and Deerclops, but probably not the Eater Worlds, Queen Bee, and definitely not the Wall of Flesh. And because then it has so much RNG locked behind it, see. And now we have one of the better yo-yos, the Hive 5. So it's basically like the Beekeeper, except it's a yo-yo. You get it after Queen Bee, however it's not dropped from her, you actually craft it with bee wax. Still crafted, but still dropped from Queen Bee, but you get the idea. But anyways, how is it like the Beekeeper in other ways? Well, it also summons bees, like this. There we go. Unlike the Beekeeper, however, it doesn't inflict the Confused debuff, but I guess that's alright, because if you try it on bosses, then the Confused debuff just gets wasted. A lot of pre-armor bosses are immune to it. I also forgot to mention that this, plus the Beekeeper, synergizes with one very specific accessory, and it is the Hive Pack, which I just dropped from Queen Bee, but this increases the strength of friendly bees, so given that, it could probably... I think if I tried that against the Wall of... I think if I tried this and the Beekeeper against the Wall of Flesh, it could have defeated in that time, but... Anyways. Yeah, let's fight Deerclops now, with this Hive 5. It turns out it does way better against Deerclops than I thought. Although he is pretty easy, so I didn't know what to expect. And this is how good this yo-yo does against Skeletron. And that was relatively easy. Yeah, I don't really think that was... I don't think I did very good against the wall. So you're probably thinking I'm gonna put this in B as well with the Beekeeper. Yeah, actually, B tier. No, actually, I know it can take out the Wall of Flesh, but I might have had to do better than that. A tier. And the last two pre-hard mode yo-yos are the Valor and the Cascade. Now these are obtained at very similar points to the game, after Skeletron has been defeated, but they are obtained entirely differently. Because the Valor is like the Muramasa, it is obtained from locked gold chests in the dungeon. And the Cascade has a rare chance to drop from enemies in the underworld. So I guess if you want a yo-yo after Skeletron right away, then the Valor is the best one. As the Cascade does slightly less damage. However, the Cascade, let me see, it does inflict the on fire debuff to make up for it. You can see that they're still being damaged. And the Valor, it doesn't. No debuffs. It's just pretty generic. So maybe if you want a different yo-yo that inflicts a debuff, then the Cascade is the other option. However, because people tend to fight the wall flesh after Skeletron, they're usually pretty bad against it. They're not built for the hungry, and you will never get to the wall. You will never get to the main wall with it, with either of them. So I think given how equally down bad these yo-yos are, and the fact that the High Five is just arguably better, yeah, they have to go in C tier as well. Now, if you're wondering why I haven't included the Slime Spear in the last video, it's because that is actually obtained after King Slime, because you have to make this with gel as solidifier, dropped from King Slime. Oh, but this was also a new weapon added in 1.4.5. But yeah, I don't really give any spears a chance in any playthroughs because, well, broadswords are better. But I've gotta give this one a go, so let's try it on a few bosses. Now the reason I want to give this a chance is because that, unlike most other spears, it inflicts a debuff, which is slimed. And what this does is increase the damage of fire debuffs. It's worth noting that they are one of 3 weapons in the whole game that can inflict this debuff, with the other 2 being the Slime Whip and the Slime Gun. The Slime Whip being added in the exact same update. But anyways, yeah, here we go, we're gonna try it on the brain. Now it did do little damage for a post King Slime weapon. It does 9 melee damage at base. But it still held up well against the brain. Although what I did realize was that it did not inflict any fire debuffs. I think that's because that you have to synergize it with a certain accessory, and that is the Magma Stone. Because that allows melee weapons to inflict fire debuffs. Although with some other melee weapons that inflict, there are some other weapons that can inflict some fire debuffs as well. Volcano, Phoenix Blaster, Flaming and Hellfire arrows, Cursed Flame arrows, Cursed Flames, Frost arrows. Is that his name? I don't know. Anyways, Frost Brand. I don't even know if that inflicts a debuff. Frost Armor with melee ranged weapons. Shadow Flame Knife. Dark Lance, Shadow Flame Bow, Shadow Flame Hexdoll, Flamerang, Flaming Mace, Sun Fury, Waffles Iron, and maybe even the Flask of Fire and Flask of Cursed Flames. Yeah, that's quite a lot, and I'm sorry if you're overwhelmed by how many weapons there are. But basically, you get the whole idea. You need the Magma Stone or a Flask of Fire to do efficient fire damage with the Slime Spear. Yeah, that was a little misleading. Maybe not misleading, but confusing. I can still find some potential in it, but given its low damage, it's gonna go in C. Although I guess in Skyblock Seed it is useful there, but so is the Slime Whip. And the last pre-hard mode spear is the Dark Lance. And this thing's actually pretty sick. Now allow me to narrow it down to its roots first. In 1.0.6, the speed was increased from average to fast. In 1.3, the damage was increased to 29 and knockback was increased to 5. And in 1.4.4, the damage was increased to 29 to 34. Now generates a shockwave at the end of the spear, like this, almost like the rotted fork, and inflicts Shadow Flame. Yep, inflicts Shadow Flame. In pre-hard mode, mind you. These are the only weapons that can inflict a debuff in Terraria. So that means that the Dark Lance is the only weapon in pre-hard mode that inflicts Shadow Flame. Yeah, that seems pretty surprising. Oh, but it's yet again another post-Skeletron weapon. It can be found in the shadow chests in the underworld. So with that being said, let's go try on the Wall of Flesh. Now even though I didn't defeat the Wall of Flesh with the Dark Lance, I still did good enough. And the Wall of Flesh is thankfully not immune to Shadow Flame. I still don't think it's all bad. Does it pierce by chance? I'm not sure if it pierces, but I still want to try against the Destroyer. So against the Destroyer, if you get to the coil, then you can do a lot of damage because it does pierce. But the probes will quickly overwhelm you. But I still think it's decent at most. Yeah, A tier. Next is the Flamerang, our first post-boss boomerang, whatever. But this is crafted with 10 Hellstone bars and an enchanted boomerang, and inflicts the on fire debuff. Anyways, despite being obtained in the exact same state of the game as the volcano, it somehow has 49 damage. And the crazy part is that if you pair that with 3 accessories reforged to menacing, and its best modifier being godly, that's 72 melee damage for a post Brain of Cthulhu New World's weapon. That's pretty crazy. So let's try on Skeletron. And that finished him up pretty quick. I don't really want to do Queen Bee or Deerclops, but I already know that they're about to get evaporated anyway, so we're gonna try on Wall of Flesh. Well, I couldn't defeat him with the Flamerang, but I still feel like with his high damage output, it seems solid. Yeah, 8 here. On the other hand, we have the Combat Wrench, which has very less damage for a post-Skeletron weapon because it's dropped from the mechanic. But I'm not very sure if this is even reliable. Still gonna give it a chance, but I just know for a fact that it might not do good against the Wall of Flesh. Let's try it. Yeah, I'm not so sure what to feel about that. C tier? Yeah, C tier. And next is the Meatball. And the only buff it got was a 1.4, where the damage was increased to 34. And says the functionality of flails were reworked. Does that mean like all flails? I think I gotta see. Or anyways, to craft this, you need 10 Crimtane bars and 5 tissue samples. So like post Brain of Cthulhu. And it's exactly like every other flail except in pre-hard mode, except for the chain knife. But it just has 34 damage. Although I guess the Blue Moon and Sun Fury got reworked. We'll talk about them later. But now to try it on Deerclops. Yeah, it was relatively easy. I got the Amarok from Deerclops. Well, I mean, to be fair, he is in the snow biome, and the Amarok drops from areas in the snow biome. Oh yeah, that's pretty funny. That was pretty difficult, but I still managed to defeat Skeletron. I won't try against the Wall of Flesh though. Probably because I have a problem with this subtype of weapon. I much rather prefer flails like the chain guillotines. I don't know how you pronounce that. Guillotine. Oh, still, I have a problem with the subtype. Yeah. We also have 2 better flails after this, so I think we better just slap in B and get to those real quick. The Blue Moon. Oh, wait a second. The Blue Moon. So I bet before 1.4.5, no one would have used this over the Sun Fury. And I don't blame them. Sun Fury is better against the Wall of Flesh. No special debuffs. No insanely high damage. Well, 54 is quite a lot for a pre-hard weapon. But still, not very appealing. And if we're going to be talking about the Blue Moon, we have to talk about the Sun Fury too. Because there is a slight difference with these. The Sun Fury inflicts the on fire debuff. And it's also found These two are also found post-Skeletron. I'm not sure if I mentioned that. But they're obtained differently. The blue moon is from the dungeon. The Sun Fury is from locked shadow chests. But anyways, in 1.4.5, both of these flails receive a buff, and now they do something unique. Because if you have both of them in your inventory, you can swing to both of them at once and throw both of them. And it's what they call synergy. They just throw both of them around and launch them in both directions. So we've got to try the Wall of Flesh. I bet they would make for amazing weapons against it. Oh, I also forgot to remind you that the Sun Fury has 64 damage at base. That's probably the highest damage for a pre-hard mode weapon. Alright, so anyways, I was trying to see what weapon could rival the damage of either of these two flails. But anyways, yeah, I'll try on the Wall of Flesh now. Yeah, I didn't get to defeat the Wall of Flesh with it, but it absolutely massacred the Hungry. Anyways, I feel like this synergy is trying to represent the sun and moon. Like, sun and moon. Right? That's probably not what they're going for. Actually, that's probably what they're going for. But, yeah, that's pretty funny, actually. It definitely makes sense why they implemented this synergy. But for how well they do, I think that might actually be A tier. And let's put the Sun Fury up there too. There we go. And then we gotta talk about what they did to the Ale Tosser. So you might think of this as a ranged weapon, and it is. But in 1.4.5, it is now a melee weapon for whatever reason, among so many other buffs. For example, its AoE was increased by 5x5 tiles to 9x9. You can't really see it, but you get the idea. Its damage was increased to 32. Use time was decreased to 32. Geez, both of these things decreased. Both of these things are 32. Anyways, velocity increased to 11, but the knockback was decreased from 7 to 4. That's its only caveat. Oh yeah, and it has a 5% chance to inflict a confuse debuff. But as I've said so many times, there are so many bosses that are immune to this specific debuff that is genuinely wasted. Even though there are still some that are affected by it. And it has I kid you not, a 69% chance to... a 69% ammo reversation chance. Yeah. Oh yeah, and it's dropped from the Tavern Keep. So, like, also post Breakthrough and Era Worlds. But anyways, despite it being a melee weapon, it still has modifiers that ranged weapons would have, like Unreal. That's still its best one. But now, I'm left wondering whether this is a melee weapon or a ranged weapon. Because it says it's a melee weapon, but it still has these range modifiers. So which is it? Questions aside, it still did decent at most against Deerclops. Yeah, it didn't really do it against Skeletron. Now anyways, maybe the fact that it gets range modifiers might be rectified in a future update, but I digress. And yeah, it's not very good. Yeah, C tier. And last and definitely least is the Tragic Umbrella. Yeah, I'm not very sure what the point of this is unless, as the name suggests, something tragic. I don't know. Yeah, it's useful against nothing. Just look at its range. On top of that is the post-Skeletron weapon, because you have to buy it from the Clothier in a graveyard biome. So, post-Skeletron. And if you think about trying it against the Wall Flesh, don't. And have a look at its damage. 19 is extremely small for a post-Skeletron melee weapon. Oh wait, did I say 19? I meant 15. Yeah, 15. Because I have some accessories on. You know what? Let me take those off. There we go. Now it's 15. And yeah, you get the whole point. I don't really think I have to say anything more about this. Trash or F tier? Yeah, we have to put it in the trash can. Man, we had a lot of great melee weapons. We just had to end off this sucker. But anyways, yeah, that's all the pre-hard mode melee weapons. Ranging from Copper Short Sword to Knight's Edge. Yeah, that's it, everyone. Hopefully I did good, and it looks like I don't have any time for any hard mode weapons, but anyways. Yeah, that's it, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.